Hey Nick, how are you?
I'm good and you.
Good, good, good.
Good. Another episode of PLA. We've got two questions today to go through, and I'll start with your question first. We are again continuing on our student accommodation journey. And today, what I wanted to get from you is just a little bit of information on uh, student accommodation and specifically due diligence when you are considering a student accommodation property investment.
So what is due diligence on a property investment deal? Now, there's a lot that you need to look at when it comes to investing in any property, any business, any transaction whatsoever. And this is called due diligence. You need to ensure that what you're buying, what you're acquiring, is actually worth your time and energy. So when it comes to property, there's a couple of things that you want to look at before entering into the deal, before necessarily putting pen to paper. Now, I've discussed this before plenty of times. Remember that when making an offer in any commercial transaction or issuing a letter of intent, all this means, all you're really trying to achieve is a scenario where the person that might be selling the property or selling the shares in a company that owns property basically stops for a period of time and tries not to sell it to anyone else. So you want to secure the deal, but you still want to open yourself up to the opportunity of being able to do a due diligence on the deal. So next week, we'll discuss more about putting the deals together. This due diligence can actually take place before you even make an offer or after you make the offer, but it is imperative that if you make the offer without doing a due diligence, that the contract states that the offer is subject to the suspensive condition that a due diligence is conducted within a certain period of time. So that is very important, and that is what we're going to discuss next week. But now I wanted to discuss the actual due diligence. What do you look at before even considering a deal? What are the red flags, and what do you want to go into detail and investigate and figure out? Now, the most common when it comes to property transactions is the condition of the property. The condition is a big one because you're buying an asset made of brick and mortar, but you don't know what the condition is. And we've learned from years and years of experience that unfortunately, a property in a bad condition costs an arm and a leg to fix. So you don't want to find yourself buying a property where the asset itself puts lives at jeopardy, and puts everyone in a position where and then you can't actually make money out of this. Now, what are the typical things you're going to look for? I don't work in that space. I'm not the person that's climbing into roofs and checking out the beams and the trusses and making sure that things are built correctly. I certainly wouldn't be able to tell the different types of cracks and what they mean and whether they can be underpinned or not. I don't have that information at my fingertips, but there are professionals that do. And this is what you want to do. You want to go into this deal, and the first thing that you want to do is check the condition of the property, hire those inspectors. And again, if you do it before making the offer or if you do it after making the offer, it doesn't matter. But you have to do it. It's very, very important that you do. Another component, so that is the actual condition of the property and the due diligence around condition. So now we start moving into the legal due diligence side of things. Now, the legal due diligence has a number of different aspects. The one aspect is, again, your most typical one, try figure out whether the property is lawful. What do I mean by that? Is it zoned correctly? If, especially with student accommodation, if you have a number of students in the property, it has to meet certain zoning requirements or consent use requirements. If it doesn't, unfortunately, you're buying a business, but you're buying a business that technically is now trading unlawfully. So you want to make sure that this consent is there or that the zoning is there. Another very important thing, your building plans. Please make sure that the building is built correctly and according to the building plans, and that these building plans are registered with the relevant council. Again, this is absolutely crucial because you don't want to find yourself in a position where things were not built accurately, and you might actually find the municipality at some point knocking on your door demanding the demolition of certain structures. So from a legal perspective, very important to make sure that the property is compliant. In addition to that, another legal aspect that you might want to look at when it comes to buying properties is the lease agreements in relation to the property. Now, there's certain agreements that are in place. And when we speak about the purchasing and acquisition of businesses, we speak about contracts. Contracts are assets for the most part. You want to make sure that these contracts are in place and that they make sense, that they will continue providing an income for you. So the first thing you want to check is that the contract can actually be passed on to you. Now with property, this is an easy one because there's a concept in our law called verkoop, which basically means that the person buying the property steps into the shoes of a landlord. So that's an easy one. But if there are other contracts that aren't necessarily lease related, you need to make sure that you as the buyer can now step into the shoes of the person that entered into this contract, because it might be an imperative for the continued running of your business. Examples of a situation like that is if you have, for example, clients that you're servicing for some reason or another. And again, that's why I said in property transactions, this doesn't happen frequently, but it is something to bear in mind. You also want to make sure that continued supplies keep coming to the property. So if you, for example, have certain suppliers that do cleaning, caretaking, whatever the case is, you want to make sure that these contracts actually allow you to step into the shoes of the owner and allow you to actually engage the services of these suppliers. That's also very important for continued business use. Now that's the legal side. The financial side, also very important. You want to make sure that the property is profitable. You want to make sure that money, not necessarily that money is being made, but money can be made. Remember, if you're buying an investment, sometimes you may find that the owner isn't properly capitalizing on the asset that they have. This is something that you can do. So needless to say, the property might not need to be running at a profit at that point, but you want to make sure that it's capable of running at a profit. So you want to test everything that's happened in the entire operational structure of this business. You want to test against the financials. What is the occupancy rate of the property? And how much rent are the current occupants actually paying? And how much rent? Is there a shortfall of rent? And if there is a shortfall of rent, you want to move to the last stage of your due diligence, which is the operational side of things. How are things operating? Why does the property not have the required amount of tenants? Is there something wrong in the property? Is the property actually being maintained properly? Is there any way that you can actually tweak it so that you can fill the property up with more tenants and make it more appealing for tenants to want to move in? Are the tenants that are there actually being vetted correctly? Are they the right tenants? And again, if you did your financial due diligence, you'd be able to see from the rental roll that some tenants are defaulting. And you may find that unfortunately the person that placed these tenants did it in a rush and didn't properly do the vetting that's necessary in order to place good quality tenants. And again, remember, with students, if you have a NSFAS funding, at least the NSFAS is paying you. But if you're going through the private route, it is very, very important that you actually vet the students or their parents properly so that you can ensure income going into the future.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Bruno.